A story, a story. Come, let me tell a story. A story, a story. Tonight we're gonna tell a story.
My name is Varia Williams. In the production Once Upon a Time in BIM, I am the artistic director and one of the storytellers. Storytelling is important to me as a director, as a teacher, as a mother, as an actor, as an artist, because storytelling for me is the basis of all the art forms. All art for me comes from storytelling. From the cavemen drawings, there was a story to tell. When you're cooking, when you're drawing, when you're painting, when you're singing and dancing, you're telling a story.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the crime world, there are thousands of stories. This is just one of them.
We don't get to see our own stories being told, right? We get to see North America stories being told, CNN story being told, Hollywood story being told, BBC story being told, Al Jazeera story being told. Caribbean stories are, not easy to find, not easy to get hold of. And of course, everybody wants to put their own narrative in things. I want to put my own narrative in things. I feel like I've had an extremely interesting experience, interesting life. And that's why I want to tell these stories and other stories in shows like this. So that's why it's important to me.
Oh Lord, poor Millie. How many times have you heard that song?
The idea for my story came from my interaction with a guy by the name of Frederick Allen, now Dr. Frederick Allen. I was interacting with him on another project and we got to talking about the folk song Millie, which was a true occurrence that happened in Barbados. So when they pitched the idea to me, I thought, hey, it'd be an interesting idea to create a story around this folk song. Because I knew he did the research, I contacted him. I thought it was an important story also to do at the time when domestic violence against women and violence in general was creating some, and still continues to create some havoc here in Barbados.
I grew up in Plains Bay and I heard it was Fontaine. So I chose that story because I felt it relates to domestic violence and the scourge in Barbados. And even though it had a resolution, I think that men should learn to respect living space and their property.
Well, the idea for the show and the idea for my story came together because we were familiar with Kim Ramsey's book about crimes that shocked Barbados. And this house that I live in has a particular history and a story to tell in and of itself. And so from there, we thought this is a great setting to tell my story, the story of this house, and a great setting to tell other stories. We wanted to do this at an unconventional ground like this house because it was also 2020 at a time when theater was on pause and art was on pause. We all wanted to come together and be together and listen and share a vibe. So that's kind of where the idea came from.
So it didn't matter how much times Granny tell me about the steel donkey, or the Baku, or the heart man.
The process for creating my story was really sheer recollection and going right back to those memories and those nights of running home through Spite Song and trying to get home before it's too dark and always being off the street at a certain time. So just my recollection of the story of the Heartman as a child. So just a bit of surfing, obviously a bit of imagination, a bit of embellishment, but that is what helped me to create the story. But it is a real life story of my journey, my introduction, my understanding of the Heartman.
Well, to create this story in particular, I remember all the things that people was telling me when I was young, and I had the biggest escape, and then I combined their memories, those very colorful memories, with Kim Ramsey's book, Barbados Most Wanted, the section of Windsor Hall, and I married the facts with the incredible fiction and embellishment that happened to make sure that the audience could already experience the wonderful memories that I have of Winston Hall.
The company I'm working for is Sounds Inc. I have worked on a few other plays or productions that would have had a similar tone, but the storytelling aspect and the more local aspect of this production was very interesting indeed. My favorite story would have been, at least at the night, would have been the story of the murders at the Rectory, which would have been at the location which the production was performed.
The story of this house, this is an old plantation house. It is the former rectory of St. Matthew's Church. And in 1967, on Christmas Eve, a terrible, terrible murder happened with a woman and her child. And it shook Barbados. It also shook this village in Huddersfield Turning. People talk about it today because of the series of events. And you know, it was just a heinous crime a year after our independence. And so I felt like it was important to tell this story. I have lived in this house for years. And I think it was time. There was, maybe 10 years ago, I would never have told this story. There was also a confluence of events in relation to this show with independence, Christmas coming up, COVID, Black Lives Matter, a full moon, storytelling that needed to happen. It was the perfect storm, we thought, for an event such as this.
I am totally enjoying working with the cast for Once Upon a Time in Vim. I've worked with all of the performers at some point in time in the past, but it's good to be with them.
It was very interesting because honestly, when I first showed up to the first rehearsal, I was genuinely expecting a much younger demographic of cast members. I was expecting basically children or people my age. But when I showed up and I saw all of these experienced performers and writers and practitioners, I got a little bit intimidated. But after the first rehearsal, I felt a little bit more comfortable with the cast. Everyone was open, and it was really nice to watch them in their own process, performing and learning different things from them as well.
I had fun. This experience was good. Favorite cast member? I like all of them. I like all of them.
Because don't get caught up. To me, the bus ride to work on the slave ship is the same way. Right?
We go by Parhelion Lighting, full name Parhelion 120 Stage Lighting Inc. Once Upon a Time in Vim deals with a lot of horror, tragedy, some comedy, and so as it goes through the different moods and emotions, the lighting really supports that. It even helps to enhance the effect that the storyteller is trying to create for the audience, so it's critical.
I found the show to be unique, inspiring, amazing under a full moon, especially.
It was wonderful, exceptional, it was truly enjoyable, a good thing to do on Independence Weekend.
Oh, it was wonderful. It brought back quite a few memories, you know, of old Barbados. And I'm sure that every household has experienced the storytelling of the drumbeat, the rolling calf, and still donkey. So it was quite familiar.
It was amazing to get so many different people doing like soliloquies or whatever. As I said, it's not what I was expecting, but it was still very refreshing because it was everybody telling a separate story, and it seemed like if some people were actually telling personal stories, like with Billy and stuff, so I really appreciated that.
So I can't really tell you which one is my favorite. I love them all, and I really do hope that Varia and her team does this at some other time, that other people who may not have been able to attend can come.
Arts on a whole in Barbados has always struggled with support. I mean, and support of course is relative, so it could be familial support, it could be financial support, governmental, kind of public support. We want to do this again. We know it's important to do again. All of the patrons, you know, had incredible feedback, and we have more stories to tell. We can't do it without financial support. We need the support of sponsorship. We need more public support as well, people to come out. We want this to grow. We want this idea of telling stories to come back to Barbados, to come back to theatre. And we want to do it around independence too, because of the national significance. Being Bajan and telling Bajan stories, and Barbados has so many stories to tell. So we can't do it without support.
On the wire never bend. That is the way the story ends.